Hello everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Classic Automotive Services. I'd like to say sorry for last week with the quality of the volume, as we had an issue with the microphone. Didn't really work, actually realised it weren't working. Hopefully we've sorted that out this week. So, we're impressed with the dolomite. This week managed to get all of the C-post reconstructed, all as it should be, nicely welded in, cleaned off. It's all nice and solid again. Along with that, managed to refabricate the wheel arch, refabricate all the wheel arch. The only bit I did manage to save that part, that was on the car. It'd been tack welded on, so I managed to remove it, clean it all up, do some small repairs to it, because that part itself is very difficult to fabricate. I managed to save that. The rest of it I have remade, and I've also managed to line up the swage line on the wheel arch, which is a common issue on dolomites. They never line up. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it was just a issue with the pressings in the factory. I've had a dolomite, Triumph dolomite, which was all original panels, and that step there never lines up. It's always slightly higher. So I've managed to line it up, because that's one thing that bugs me about them. So I've managed to get all nice gaps on it. So this side is very, very close to being completed, other than the front. I haven't reconstructed the inner arch yet, as I had nothing to build to. Because the arch was in such a state, it was in the wrong place. It was sticking out. It worked. It was just there's no way I could make the inner arch beforehand, because I had nothing to build to. So I've now made the outer arch. I can now get in there and make the inner arch. Yes, it's a bit more difficult to make it, but I can make it once and make it so it's the right shape. So once I get the bottom of the rear quarter all finished, because this bottom's gone to about here somewhere. Yeah, around about here. So I remake the bottom of there, then I can redo all the inner arch. As if we go in the boot, you'll see how bad it actually is. So we've still got a bit of a way to go on this side. The inner arch is completely rotten, been patched up. The boot floor is all just rotten and patched up. Been patched up a few times previously, same as the other side. That side's not quite as bad, but it's still been patched up. It started rotting around the edge of the patch, so that's all got taken out and repaired as well. But if you stand back and actually look at it, all the gaps on this side are all now nice. It's all gapped up nicely. It's how I want it. Just a little bit of bodywork in the paint and preparation stage, and it will look absolutely perfect. So that's the dolomite. We'll put some photographs in of all the fabrication of the wheel arch and doing all that now, so you can see what it was like before and how we've done it in sections and how it is now. moving on to the TR7, we're going to be doing carrying on with the modifications that we're doing with it and getting on with the water system today. So let's go over here and show you the inlet manifold. So as we said in previous videos, we're using a 1850 in a manifold, which we've already ported. But something I wanted to show you guys, you need to be very aware if you're doing any of these manifolds. Same with the Dolomites. No, Dolomite Sprint doesn't have the O-ring. Sorry, the TR7 and 1850 has an O-ring in here. What you get supplied is that O-ring, which does fit. Fits quite well, but it's not correct. That is a genuine O-ring. It's an imperial measurement. That is the correct O-ring for this application. We've personally had problems with the new O-rings. If you look at the two O-rings, you can clearly see this one is a much thicker profile. It's considerably thicker than that one. And what happens with a thicker O-ring is you may think it's going to seal better. Unfortunately with these it doesn't. You haven't got a fixing over here to help pull it down. So you either get an air leak on this cylinder because it's holding it off, or if you tighten the manifold up to stop the air leak, the manifold actually distorts there, which we've had happen, and we've been checking the manifold every time, and this O-ring then weeps. So it's critical that you get the correct O-ring. That one is a slightly slimmer profile and will seal. It's still nice and proud, but it will seal a lot better than that one. So that's what we're going to fit, is the correct O-ring for it. Don't put up with the manufacturers telling you that's all that's available, because, well, it might be what's all available from them, but it's not the right O-ring. And all the transport suppliers that I've spoken to are supplying this O-ring now. So do not buy one. You will have issues. Use the correct O-ring every time. Otherwise you will either damage the manifold or you'll have a leak. So we're going to get this finished off. We've got put our bung in the waterway, and then that is pretty much ready to fit, and we can start building up the water system. Once we get this fitted up, we're also going to modify the bottom radiator hose, as we chopped the stand when we fit the water pump, the electric water pump on it. We used the standard radiator hose and shortened it, and it's a little bit too tight to the alternator. So now we know the system works, we're going to reroute the bottom radiator hose slightly to bring it away from the alternator, just so there's no chance of it chafing and eventually wearing through and giving you a leak. So we're going to alter that, hopefully get this fitted, as long as we've got all our parts, which I think we may have. I've double checked, but I think we've got all the parts to get this sorted now, and we can hopefully get this on and then start looking at getting the carbs back on, ready for the cam shims to come back next week. We've spoken to the manufacturers making the cam shims for us. They're in the hardening process at the tail end of the week. It was Thursday, Friday. They were in the hardening process, so we should have them back next week. So fingers crossed, next week we should have this up and running again and be able to do some road testing with it, which will be quite fun, hopefully. So we'll get on with sorting out the manifold and getting ready to rebuild it all. Right, we've got the manifold ready to go back on the car. We've fitted the blanking bung to fit for our water pump system, temp sender, as it's easier to put the temp sender in now before it goes on the vehicle. So that's a nice tight press fit with some sealer on it. So the manifold is now ready to be fitted. It's all ported, ready to match. All port matched, ready to the car. The only thing we have got to do is transfer the throttle linkage off of the old manifold onto the new manifold, but we'll do that once it's on the car, as what we want to do is we want to get this on the car, get all the water system plumbed up, and before we put the carbs and everything on, we can fill the cooling system up with coolant and then run the water pump, which will circulate the water around the system, bleed the system off, and we can check for leaks. So Thomas is under the bonnet at the moment, relocating the bottom water hose. So once he's done that, we can get this fitted and start plumbing it in and get the water system up and running. So let's get that bottom radiator hose sorted out. We have relocated the bottom radiator hose because it was real tight to this alternator and it was actually chafing on the alternator. So we've clocked the outlet on the water pump and then put a nice 90-degree bend here with some pipe just to bring it away from there. So we can now get the manifold back on once we've cleaned up the manifold face. Hopefully get the rest of it piped up and get the water system built up. So that is making progress. Hopefully we'll have the water system built up very, very shortly. Right, we've now got the 1850 manifold all installed. As I showed earlier with the genuine O-ring, which hopefully won't leak. We'll find out in a minute when we start putting coolant in it. We've replumbed the heat hoses to suit this manifold. So it's ready to put some coolant in it. And with the system that we've got, we can then run the pump without running the engine to bleed the system off before we actually run it, which is another good thing of this system that we've put together. So when it comes to putting the coolant in the TR7s and the dolomites, stags, TR8s, I found the best way to do it. To help eliminate any airlocks is to actually fill it through the top radiator hose. So fill it through here, so it goes into the radiator, then it works its way up the engine until it starts trickling out of here. Once it starts trickling out of here, put that straight back on there and then top up the expansion tank, and that I found it's one of the fastest and the easiest way to fill it up. So what we'll do now is we'll fill it with antifreeze, and it's also very important in the TR7s and the stags, dolomites, to run a good quality antifreeze with a lot of anti-corrosion inhibitors in them. Otherwise you do suffer with the heads corroding. The waterways get sludged up as well, but it's part of the TR7 service schedule to actually drain the water system every 2 years and flush it and put antifreeze back in it to stop the sludge in the system. So this is what we're going to be using, is this antifreeze. It's already got quite a bit in it, so we'll just finish topping it up and see if we can get it bled off. So let's fill it up. You want to go grab the water, Matt? Cheers. Just leave that there to soak up a bit of water. Right, do you want to tighten that clip up? Just leave that cloth there so it soaks up the water. That's it. Right. Right, let's turn the pump on. Let's disconnect the fuel pump so we don't pump fuel everywhere. Wouldn't be a good idea. That's it, fuel pump's off. So we will now turn the pump on. If I put the battery on, that is. That's it. There we go. Let's one, two. And there we are. The pump is now circulating the water. I don't know if you can hear the pump running. It's just pump is running. Circulating the water around the system. And that will bleed the system after just a few seconds of running, because it runs flat out and really pumps it around. So while that's doing that, all we've got to do now is top up the expansion tank. There we go. And that is the cooling system on TR7 filled up and bled off. Let me just turn that off. There we go. Let's just wipe this down. I spilled all the water, which was good. We'll have to give this a good clean off and dry off, and check it, just double check it for any leaks. But it should all be absolutely fine. So that's pretty much it for this week on the TR7. Next week we are hoping to have the shims back, and we should be able to get this thing actually all sorted out and running, and start doing some road tests with it and finalising the fueling on the carburetors. Hopefully get a bit more on the dolomite done. So one thing I do want to put on the channel, the dealership this car come from, Henley's. I've had 3 Triumphs now from this dealership, and I believe it was down in Wimbledon, from the research that I've found. But if anyone can shed some light on this dealership, or maybe even have some photographs of the dealership, or know any information about it, I quite like looking at the history of the cars. It'd be nice if anyone could shed some light on that. As I said, I've personally had 3 Triumphs from which have all had that number plate, that Henley's on the number plate. And ironically, all of them have been 76, 77 cars as well. So it'd be nice to get some more information on that dealership. So that's all we have time for this week. So sorry it's been a little bit bitty, but we've been trying to push on with getting that manifold and that water system all sorted out. But hopefully next week we'll have it running, which will be a nice massive step forward. So please like and subscribe, as we have now hit the 100 subscribe mark, and we'd like to really keep going with it and really push on. And the only way we can do that is if you guys help us out by clicking that subscribe button. That's it for this week. Thank you very much. See you next week.